here we are again. I am really excited to get back into this. I am going to be really quick with this. Here is Book 1, Part 2, Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Mataro was hanging from a cliff. She was trying so hard to get up to Vex. "Hey, psst, just drop down. I'll catch you," a voice whispered quickly. Mataro's trusting nature took over, and she did what the voice said. Mataro got hit by some rocks and a spurt of fire from the Viper Fury, which made her go unconscious. It seemed to be that whenever anything exciting happened, Mataro always passed out. Marblusu tried to follow, but he couldn't find her at all, so he just started following Vex instead. Mataro opened her eyes every so often to see a man holding her, and different foxes here and there, but she still couldn't get enough energy to wake up. A while later, Mataro woke up completely. She shot up and looked around. There were all sorts of magical and normal foxes everywhere, and walking into the room was the same man that probably brought her here. "Good morning," he chuckled, bringing her food. "Your leg is badly hurt. You're not able to walk, I don't think. This fire also burned your back pretty good," he said. Mataro looked at her leg. It had sticks and wraps all over it. Where am I?" she breathed, looking around. The man gave her a cup of water and some eggs. "This is the Skulk," he said, smiling. "Except not just foxes are in this one," he said. That's when Mataro finally found one thing out of place. Mataro almost freaked out. "No one but me and Vex had our fox do that," she thought. "And the last possible demons aren't..." "I'm Raxon," he said, swishing his black and white tail. "And yes, I'm kind of part raccoon. Probably some fairy thing. Don't freak out," he said, rubbing his neck. Freak out? I'm confused. You're not a fae?" Mataro said, her tail scooting the blanket over. "Wait, raccoon?" She paused. "I thought I was the only one. But then He stopped, and a wide smile appeared on his face. "Like you?" she said, looking down, thinking deeply about it. Raxon tilted his head. "What, are you upset about it? 'Cause you really shouldn't be," he said, trying to comfort her. Mataro shot an annoyed look and rolled her eyes. "No, stars, no! You don't understand," she mumbled, petting one of the foxes. "Understand what?" "I've spent my whole 17 years like this, haven't you?" he said, trying to piece it together. Mataro groaned and held her face. "No, I'm not like you at all," she said sternly. Before Raxon could speak, she continued. "I'm not like you, and I'm not cursed or anything else, okay?" she said straightly. Raxon thought for a moment. "Oh my poison mushrooms," he said softly, standing up and stepping back. "What?" she said, calming down again. "You're possessed by a demon, aren't you?" he said, with a small hint of fear. "I just saved the life of a demon," he whispered to himself, hands on his hair, looking down. "Why is that a bad thing? And also, I'd call it more like a bond, like we're best friends kind of thing, not more like possession," she said, crossing her arms, looking away and growling. Most of the foxes got up and left, but 3 stayed. A big yellow one, a large metal one, and a bluish one. Raxon felt bad for what he said. Okay, bond, and I'm guessing you're not going to kill me?" he asked softly, sitting down on the bed. Mataro groaned. "Not unless you keep annoying me," she mumbled, with her tail patting the bed. She obviously wouldn't, though. Raxon got confused and just said that they were going on a hunt before leaving. Mataro rested and played with the Raxon's foxes for a long time, waiting for her leg to heal fully, and for her back to stop stinging so badly. It was way too hard to stand, and her leg gave her a limp. "Mataro, I'm back!" Raxon shouted, coming back from a hunt. About a week had gone by, and Mataro was thinking about her friends constantly. Raxon had introduced a few Special foxes, like Taser. Taser liked her the best. And I found someone to join our skulk, he chuckled. Motaro limped over to see what looked like a werewolf. Well, is he nice? She asked, totally shocked. He's like a werewolf, but doesn't turn back when the sun comes up, Rexon said, poking his snout. I'll get some fish, maybe? Motaro suggested, heading to the kitchen. Taser, here, girl, she called, patting her good leg. The electric fox set down a strange creature and rushed over to Motaro. Hello, fox wolfman fey thing? He said, inspecting him. What are you? He whispered. A little later, the ground started getting cold, and then frost scattered around in an eerie way. Raxon scooted back, and then a bunch of ice started floating around the creature. He started to growl, and stood up on all fours. Where am I? He shouted, shooting his eyes open. Raxon immediately got shot with fear when he saw his demonic eyes staring him down. Why did you save me? It roared. Motaro quickly got into the room and couldn't figure out what to do. Stop! Don't hurt him, you, demon! Motaro shouted, throwing the fish at the back of his head. Johnny, is that? Vex thought. His body slumped down and his ears flattened to his head. Motaro? He whispered, with tears getting pushed away in his eyes. The ice melted away, and Vex slowly turned to see if it was truly his kind, heartwarming Motaro. His eyes widened and his ears halfway perked up. Motaro? He whispered again. Motaro was leaning against the doorway and she was huffing fearfully, with Taser growling beside her. Motaro realized the expression on his face and got confused about it. Yeah, you monster, leave! She shouted again, throwing the plate. Vex caught the plate before it broke and gently set it down. Taser yipped and rubbed against Motaro, but Motaro stopped her from attacking. Vex crawled closer to her, but she just stepped back in sync with his steps. Motaro, he said softly, backing her up against a wall. Once he just got close enough, he carefully touched her face with a shaking hand. Get back, she said, struck with fear. Motaro! Motaro, I found you! Marblesu shouted happily in her head. What? Motaro whispered, looking closer at the fox beast. Motaro, it's me, the beast whispered, retreating into a sitting position. Motaro relaxed slightly. Who? She huffed, still having her heart racing in her throat. Vex looked down. Johnny, can I return to normal? He asked in his head. Vex felt an enormous amount of pain surging through him, and a yipping howl erupted from his mouth. Then he fell to the floor. A gray aura covered him, and the ice chilled the hut. Motaro! Rexon shouted, running over to her. When the aura faded, Motaro immediately had bursts of emotion running through her. Guilt, joy, sadness, confusion, and shock. Motaro didn't even know what to do, but Rexon rushed to help him up. Vex's nose was bleeding, and his coat was torn apart. Motaro, I'm gonna get him some real clothes, a job I don't think you'll want, Rexon chuckled. Motaro snapped out of her daze. Oh, yes, that's okay, she said, shaking with the fading fear she had before. Vex, are you awake? Motaro said, way too happy now. Vex barely opened his eyes before Motaro grabbed him by his shirt, lifted him up, and kissed him. Vex gently fluttered his eyes shut again and hugged her. Rexon was in the corner, smiling and shaking his head. Vex, I miss you so much, Motaro whispered, still hugging him. I thought you were dead, he whispered back, sitting up. Rexon's eyes widened and he focused on Motaro's wound. Motaro, Rexon said, staring at her glowing leg. Motaro followed his gaze and smiled. Marblesu found me. He's just healing me like he would have done normally already, she explained, standing up straight again. Rexon was impressed, but realized what time it was. Guys, it's hunting time, Rexon said with a mischievous smile. He jumped out the window with a howl, and the hut rumbled with yips and howling. but especially running foxes in the halls. "Come on, Vex, you'll love this," Motaro giggled, pulling his arm. "Taser, pip pip," Motaro called, putting Vex in a specific spot. And then, a second later, Vex was zipped out the window on the back of an electrical fox. Taser. He looked behind him to see more foxes, and Motaro running with them. They spread through the woods and collected food. "Motaro!" he cried in a bumpy, wobbly voice. Motaro laughed. "Is this too fast?" she shouted, now climbing through the trees. Taser slowly stopped in a meadow, and Motaro dropped down next to her. "Thank you, Taser," she said, kissing her head. Vex couldn't help but laugh. He remembered how much fun they had together, and to have it again made everything better. "Whew! Now the hunt part?" he asked, smiling and catching his breath. Motaro smiled, and her tail wagged. Taser yipped and jumped forward. "Pig or sheep?" she whispered. Taser growled, and Motaro nodded. "Wild boar," she smiled. Vex got down and pulled out his dagger, and Motaro did as well. The boar was grazing on some grass, but stopped as if something else was scaring it. But Taser just wagged her tail and jumped, and with her jumped out 2 black foxes. Vex looked at Motaro, but she just lifted her shoulders up and down and jumped to attack as well. "Pig, you're going down!" Vex laughed. He jumped up and grabbed its tusk, jabbing a dagger into its skull. "Yeah!" Motaro shouted, cutting its stomach. Vex looked over at the 2 black foxes. He noticed something a little bit off about them. The 5 of them took the boar back to the hut, and they had a party. Rexon made a huge fire, and they had the boar, along with some other smaller creatures, to eat. And then, when I opened my eyes, a chimera was bulking towards us, Vex shouted, standing up in front of the fire, telling a story. "And then a herd of minotaur crashed into the field and slayed the beast," Vex said, acting spooky for the crowded foxes listening to the story. A while later, some fell asleep, but Motaro was in a daze, listening to her heroic Vex. And Kurshimu burst out in an aura-like form. "He doesn't put up much of a fight that way, actually," Vex continued with a story. Rexon carried some foxes off to bed, leaving room for the night-dwelling foxes to take a spot. Vex smiled. He loved telling stories to pufflings and wolves in the Arctic. But this was even better. Motaro was there, and he felt so much more important. "The Yeti was huge. It had Motaro in one hand and roared so loud," Vex said. "Then I slayed the beast. But there was another stronger one," he said, stretching his arms out for comparison. Once all the stories were done, Vex took Motaro back to the hut, and he couldn't find his fear anymore, and he never wanted to leave her. Rexon smiled and stared at him as he put the sleeping Motaro in bed. "Wow, younger people are so passionate," he smirked. "Thanks?" Vex said, not knowing Rexon was there. "She helped me so much. I used to pretend to be a blind man on the streets." Vex chuckled, looking at Motaro. "But fighting those Yetis changed everything." Vex turned around. "Did she ever talk about me?" he asked softly. Rexon gestured to the roof, and they watched the night sky up there. "She wouldn't dare talk any less about you than she did," Rexon scoffed. "How much was that?" he asked, lying on his back. "Almost every 2 sentences," Rexon said. Vex held back tears. "Yeah, sounds like her," he said, forcing a smile instead of a frown. They heard the firm pitter-patters of paws on the roof a moment later. "Dury, how are you?" Rexon said, still full of energy. The 2 foxes sat down next to them, but one tackled Vex and gave him a bunch of licks on the face.
"Rexon, I wish to speak alone,"
a cold voice said, but Rexon just smiled. "He's all yours." The more serious-looking fox growled at the other, and they both sat up by Vex. Wait, that's it. You 2 are connected by the tail," Vex observed, realizing what he said and immediately knew. "Darwin?" he asked. The 2 foxes nodded.
Archani, Vex, I will not be joining you two. I'm quite happy already where I am. I've been observing your little gathering, and I know what it's all about.
The serious one said without moving his jaw.
Yeah. We protect and play with the skulk. We're all friends. But, you're our friends too.
The playful one giggled. Vex nodded. I figured. Thanks for helping us. That's not really what any of the other foxes would have done at all. He scoffed tiredly. Plus, you're like their alpha, and alphas are better nice than evil. Vex chuckled.
Unlike Croshimu.
Darwin sneered.
He tries to kill any fox who disobeys.
The playful head said, trying to act scary and growl. Vex nodded. So that's that. We'll leave you alone. I get it, he said, smiling softly, and slowly stroking his hand down the serious fox's back. But you can always join too if you want, he added. But, okay, I keep saying but for now I'm gonna go to sleep, Vex chuckled, standing up.
Okay, and if you do need us, if you do need us, we'll keep our eyes out, so don't worry about it. We are all friends now.
Darwin cheered. Vex stayed with the skulk for 2 years with Motaro. But one morning, Archani couldn't hold herself back forever. She tried so hard, but then Vex woke up. Oh, everything's so small, he murmured sleepily. Wait, he said, quickly realizing and waking up more. Motaro woke up slowly in her bed and sat up. She saw Vex and immediately yelped, hitting her head on the wall. Vex, don't scare me like that, she said, holding her head. Rexon came in to give some breakfast. Whoa, big guy, he shouted awkwardly. Well, I don't know what to do. Archani, what happened? Vex asked in his head.
I can't hold it forever like the others,
She finally answered. Vex didn't mind the fox form. He was just happy that she was talking to him, finally. It's fine. I'll be okay, he said blankly to Archani. Motaro just hugged him. I'm glad Archani talks to you, she said. It's a little random, actually, Vex said, sitting down. Archani gave them some breakfast, and after that was the hunt. Okay, we ready? Motaro said, patting Vex's back. I was gonna ask you, he smirked. Motaro screamed as Vex scooped her up and ran off into the woods. The foxes yipped and howled and followed them. Am I too fast? Vex laughed over the wind. Motaro hugged onto his back. No, she said softly in his ear. Vex started to remember Freya, and he wanted to make sure she was all right. He had forgotten that Motaro was friends with her, too, better friends than Vex was with Freya. Rexon ran up to them on Taser. Where are you going? He shouted over the wind. Home, but you can come if you want, Vex shouted back. Rexon really wanted to be with him, but he loved the skulk, too. I'll think about it, he shouted back. And boom! There we go. That's what we have for Chapter 1, Part 2 of Book 1. Hopefully this was good enough for now. I know it took a while, and I know this was kind of unexpected, huh? And then, I guess just next week, I will be posting the next chapter. Mwahaha. I can't believe I'm saying that again. Anyway, hope you enjoyed.